Okay, today we're going to take a look at the fundamentals of project management. So basically, a project always consists of 4 different phases. You have the initiation phase where you define the project. What is this project going to be? Then you have the planning phase where you discover what tasks need to be done to complete the project. Then you have the execution phase where you then actually do the tasks. And at the end, you finish off the project, so the closure phase. In the standard model of a project, the idea of the phases is that you want to always finish answering all questions and finishing all tasks before you move on to the next phase. And the idea is quite simple. I mean, if you have in the initiation phase, if you did not define the project, then you cannot move on to plan the project, because if you don't know what you're actually going to do, then you also never can finish the project. Yeah, so these barriers or these phases are supposed to help you that you create a project and actually finish a project. Okay, now let's go a little into detail of the initiation phase. So the big question that you're going to try to answer in the initiation phase is, what is the project? And you really want to define it. Yeah, so you really want to know what are you supposed to do and what is the goal of the project. Many already fail at this definition because many people just start working and they actually don't know what they want to do. A classic example would be, I want to write a book. What exactly? How long should a book be? How many pages? What genres is it supposed to be? Etc. Yeah, all of these questions can be answered in the beginning, but people tend to just not do it. Yeah, in the case of our class, we're going to create a 3D animation. So that's going to be our goal. So we can take a look at the first thing. Our goal of this class is to create a 3D animation. Why am I doing this project? Well, I hope because you're interested in 3D animation, and everybody else is probably going to do it because they want to have the 3 ECTS points and they need it for their studies. The result, what is the result? What's the deliverable of the project? Well, okay, again, that's the 3D animation. That's kind of nice. I mean, it's going to be like a 10-second animation. How do you measure success? Now, that's a difficult question. Many people don't define this in the first thing. So, I mean, when are you going to be satisfied? I mean, what's going to be the quality standard, or what level of expertise do you want to reach? I mean, that's something that you have to decide on your own. I would see it as soon as you finish the project that it's successful. I mean, you actually finished a project, so that is, for me at least, that would be a successful story. What are my options? This question is, well, at the university, not so trivial, because I mean, your options are that you have to do the project on your own. But if you would not be working at the university, or if you would not be studying, then maybe you would get somebody like a 3D artist. You would hire that person, that he would do the work for you, and then you would deliver the 3D animation. I mean, it's not possible here because we're at the university, but just think about that. Also not directly related to our project, but who's all involved with the project? With our project, it's going to be me, because I'm going to review it and give you feedback, and you, because you have to create the animation. Okay, what tools and skills are needed? In this case, okay, you need a computer, you need the software, Maya, and you need to acquire the skills to operate Maya. And the bigger picture is, well, you're studying and you want to get your Bachelor of Media Informatics. So I guess the bigger picture is you want to have a bachelor degree. And the project ends, well, the project ends at the end of the semester. But this question is actually a trick question, because many people only believe that a successful end is an end. Yeah, so only if you finish your 3D animation, or only if you finish the class, then that is the end. That's not true. You also can fail this class. Yeah, so that's actually this question is there to think about the scenarios of when you're going to end. And the main goal of this question is like, when is the point that you invested too much into this project and you cannot finish, or you do not have any resources anymore to finish this project? So maybe you run out of money, maybe you run out of time, maybe you run, I mean, not every project has to be ended successfully, but there has to be an end to a project. I mean, either you have a successful deliverable or you have a failed deliverable. But I mean, really think about this question, because some projects you just drag on and then you don't work on other projects because, well, you still have to finish this other project. Where sometimes you just have to let a project end because you cannot finish it, or not finish it in a satisfying way. So when does the project end? Looks at the positive outcome of the project as well as the negative outcome, that you really keep track of your own resources. Okay, the next phase is the planning phase. Here you try to organize your resources. You try to figure out what actually has to get done. So usually you start with what is the scope, what are the requirements, what work needs to be done. So like create like tasks and like kind of a long to-do list for the whole thing. And then you can take this to-do list and create an action plan. So the difference between a to-do list and an action plan is basically that some tasks cannot be done before other tasks are completed. So the main idea is that you know exactly which tasks are going to block other tasks, and then you can structure it out. And that's then very important for the next step, because what's then your scheduling? Yes, because probably, especially now when you're studying, you have other classes that you have to attend, you have other homework that you need to do. You need to figure out when you're actually going to tackle these problems and when you're going to actually complete these tasks. Yeah, that comes then with time management and resource management. I mean, hopefully, you have your own computer and you don't have a resource management problem. But I mean, 20 years ago, if you want to do 3D animation, then you would have to go into the computer lab and then order computing time and then request it and whatever, and then you would have to manage around that when you actually have access to a computer, right? Luckily, that's not the case, so you don't have too much resource management in that way, but you have time management, yeah? So it's really important for me, and actually for you, it should be really important that all your other classes, that you plan them in, that you learn for your other exams, that you do the homework for the other classes and do that stuff, yeah? So that's time management. And costs, well, in the real world, we would have to look at costs and like how much does each task cost, and how much material costs would we have, like how much resources, the software licenses, etc., etc. And then we would have like a cost overview. And then usually the project ends because you suddenly have like this planning phase. You took a look at it, how much is this entire project going to cost, and then you look at your budget, and then you probably say, oh, well, maybe we cannot complete this project. Then you just end the project, yeah, because if you don't have enough money to execute your project, then what should you do? Yeah, so that's where the planning phase then protects your resources, because then, yeah, I mean, you wasted some time of defining the project and now organizing the tasks and trying to figure out what's going on. But you're going to run out of money, so you can't complete the project. And the same is also true with you, yeah. So if you're now looking at your time management and see, oh, you have to do 3 or 4 different exams, and those are more important than this class, for example, yeah, then yeah, then the planning phase here, then cut your costs at this point and just simply say, okay, good, I won't be managing to complete this course, for example. Yeah, I mean there's nothing wrong with that. I mean that's good project planning. So you can just cancel it at this point. And that's why it's really important that you create a really good to-do list and figure out for yourself what all needs to be done for your project, that you can complete it, and that you have a high confidence that you know exactly what is going on in your project and that you can complete it. Okay, so now that we're confident with that, we can move on from the planning phase to the execution phase. The execution phase is actually quite simple. You take your tasks and then you execute them. So you complete the tasks. You check off the to-do list that you created. If you would be now in a work environment and you would actually have a project manager, then the project manager would also then not only take a look at that you execute your tasks, but yet you execute your tasks in the minimum quality that is required for this project. That would be like quality control and testing and all of those things. The other thing that needs to be constantly monitored, usually by a project manager again, would be that the tasks that you're doing are actually the correct ones that move the project in the right direction. Yeah, I mean, yes, some tasks are going to be discovered during the execution, and those then also will need to be planned. But usually um, that's then part of solving the pre-existing tasks. Yeah, so you try to take a task and then break it down into subtasks and see that you can solve the bigger problem. The other thing that most of the time, sadly, is forgotten is that you have a risk management. Yeah, so you have to identify risks that certain tasks are going to take longer than expected, certain tasks are going to take shorter than expected. But the risk is that, especially if one task delays the next task, that you see that you get the task done before this other dependent task is going to get worked on. And of course, the problem is much bigger if you have multiple people, because if person A is taking too long, then person B cannot start working, etc., etc. The other thing is, of course, risk response. I mean, the biggest risk in this project is probably that your computer breaks and that you need a new computer. Now, in a work environment or in a professional environment, usually you would have already a system in place that if a computer breaks, that the IT department immediately gives you a replacement that you can continue working as soon as possible. But that's a risk response strategy. Um, of course, there can be all sorts of risks in a project, like you can break your arm or something. Then that also needs to be thought about. I mean, not every risk is, of course, with the highest probability, but um, it is very professional to think about the risks and also have a according response to it. During the execution phase, communication is also key, especially when working with the team, that you always coordinate with the team, that you know what problems are being solved and if somebody needs additional resources or how the entire project is going. And of course, you have your team leadership. That's basically to say that the team spirit is high and that everybody is still motivated to work on the project and that the team harmonizes quite well and that people don't start fighting and accidentally doing the same task at the same time, wasting resources. That's all like in the leadership. Well, and here now we can say this phase will be complete when all tasks are done and we then have a deliverable product. And when we have that, we go into the closure phase. Now, at the end of a project, it is very important that you actually define that the project is over. Especially in software, it is kind of okay, we kind of did our release, and now we're working already immediately on the next release. But that's actually not that good to do it this way, because the psychology needs this finishing a project and actually delivering a project is actually a tremendous accomplishment, and that needs to be celebrated. So it is really important to look at this milestone and then have a party, have a team building event, and to simply say, yes, we finished it off, we did a good job, and then look forward to the next. Here is also important that when you finish the project, that you actually look at the project. You look back at the last couple of months, how you worked together and how you executed the project, and try to figure out what went wrong in the project and what went well in the project so that you have lessons learned. Because if you do this and just take a look and take the time to figure out how the project went, then you can take extra effort and more care that those problems don't repeat themselves in the next project that you're going to be working on. If you're working with other people, it's of course great if you can give them acknowledgement for their work. If you're in a company, then you would promote someone maybe if that's possible, or you would give them a small gift or award or something just to show your appreciation and tell your coworkers that they really did a good job, because that really lifts up the team spirit and makes everyone feel good. Of course, in this closure phase, also the handover happens. So in our project, of course, that will be you send me the animation and then I watch it, but you deliver your output somehow. In software, usually you would have like some software artifact and you would deliver it somewhere, and it would be then integrated or something, and or some other team is going to continue work on it, or your team is going to continue work on it, but it is delivered to the client. And when you're done with that, the client is hopefully happy. You are happy that you completed the project, and then you're done.